The regular nuggets. Yeah. So it was not a destination.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, actually, I did there and I just recently did. I don't know. No. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to get into that space. I mean, most people have grades and then
Yeah.
Yes. I want to get on space. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Marini.
Good. No,
You guys want like tea or coffee? Please make yourself sure. There's something else. Yeah, I think there's a sign up sheet.
Yeah, I'm going around right now. Oh, Gigi? Hi, it's nice to meet you. Yeah, all the women are parking.
Yeah, I just saw one person actually. That's why I was
Priya, hi. Are you able to hear us? You can tell us somehow, telegraphically.
yeah, it
I think I finally got the text.
Okay.
Moving parts.
Rahul. Nice to meet you, Rini. Thank you for coming for speaking. It's really a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Okay, great. I think we're going to learn something from you. You want some tea, coffee? Or...
Yeah, have a seat and have your sign-up sheet. Anybody want to use the restroom? Just up and down. Waiting for a few folks to come in, getting text messages, there's stuck in traffic, and parking.
Oh, yeah, classic.
Yeah.
But good, we're all set. Technology-wise.
Technology-wise, we're good to go.
So far. Wait, am I playing on some other speaker? I should be playing on this. No. Yeah, that's funny. Where's it playing?
Christmas music?
That's hilarious and funny because where is it playing? It's supposed to be playing here. Like, I'm going to do this again.
Do you need any
Not
help?
the office speaker.
Do you need any help?
What is it again? Can you tell me what the speaker is? Where is this thing?
It's right there. Yeah. Yeah, I'm there.
No, the thing is over here. I'm trying to play to this guy, and that's funny.
Oh, I know where.
Where? What is it? What is the speaker?
That's a big speaker.
No, no, this one's over here. It's not playing. That's not. Oh, it's the box? What the heck is it doing? Okay, let me figure this one out.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to get that. How to get extra
Bluetooth pairing.
Just family here and your ties.
Bluetooth connected.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll get to it.
How are you?
Bluetooth connected.
Yeah, I think it's probably happened. I don't want to use such a time. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, more time.
So you were asking about how many meters you done?
Oh, yeah.
This is our third for data science, women in data.
They also went to school.
We did last year,
Yeah.
and yes, this is our first.
Oh, okay. So what is the plan today?
So one is the other
This
is
is really nice.
yeah, we have a data science cohort free. We'll be announcing that. That's a great challenge. Really interesting. So that's what
Yeah. I supposed to come last week. I think come up last time.
so last time, okay, yeah.
This is, I should have.
Sure, yeah. Anyone?
And Suva is here, right?
Suva is in there.
It is Suva works.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Suva's part.
Well, in another team, so that's what I meant.
Oh, right. So the whole thing around make tech purple is one, our logo is purple, but the other thing is if you look at the ratio of women in tech, you know, it's really off. If you look at women in the workforce, it's 51% is women. If you look at tech, data science, it's 25% and 19%. Like really bad ratio. So we deal with the problem. How can we increase more women? Yes.
That's awesome. I'm actually in my company the only woman tech leader.
Seriously?
Yeah, so I completely understand and see that. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about, I really do want to investigate why you think that. It's not that women are not doing STEM. In India, for example, half the women are engineers, are women. But then through the career.
Oh, the responsibilities.
Huh?
All the other
No, that's true for every career, right? Why? That's not just tech.
It's most dominated by men.
But why? Why is that?
It's been that way for a long time in this country. I mean, after I did my master's, there were like 2 women out of.
No, I don't know my engineering days, but
Yeah,
that
you
was
probably
another.
had 2 or 3 girls out of whatever you were. So that's the pool that came into the workforce.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's changing. I can say my girls are doing much better than I am.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, in kids' generation now, I think girls are doing better than boys are.
Right.
Sad for the boys.
It is sad for the boys now.
Yeah. I have a son and a daughter, so I'm equally great. So if you're milling about, so we have the QR codes for people's LinkedIn. So if you're interested in getting to know the speakers better or getting to know us better, just go point your phone camera to any of those 4 codes and it'll open up our LinkedIn and you can send us. And we are going on.
Yeah, thank you.
Just walk up close. Just pick one because it won't answer. Yeah. Yeah. Ah. That's enough for us all.
Ready for tomorrow also?
Yeah.
So if you are, yeah. Okay. Just that's what network. How
I mean, for us, honestly, I didn't have enough. If it was the same company, yeah, it's changing now. It's changing.
Tomorrow we have a workshop at so this brown session we are doing introduction to network security network security network.
maybe you're gonna share.
Yeah, I think I'm probably
Right, a lot of things I
Something. So many people. Diet.
But that's not what that's not. That's what.
It's like similar. No carbs, but it's called SLEs, like specific carbohydrates. So I can eat these. I have not heard of that. But this is not for weight loss. This is for inflammation. So they say carbs. Your bacteria, they love to use the carbs. So the more you have, the more they eat.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and then your autoimmune. And then your white blood cells attack it and create problems.
There's all kinds of diets.
I can only stay away from carb. I love carbs too much.
So hard.
Yeah,
I was on keto.
Oh, I did 4 months last year. Actually, I don't know how I did it.
Okay, wow.
4 months, but it's not sustainable. You know,
really
everywhere
not.
you look around,
Yeah.
everything is carbs.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not sustainable. And it's
Then I
not,
travel, then that's it. And since then, I've never gone out.
it's just too much meat, right? Like being
Actually,
Indian.
no, it's not so much meat. It's a lot of vegetables. That was okay when I did it. It's just sometimes not having
Yeah.
I think once in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, like fruit, you're allowed fruits, but no potato, no tubers. Yeah. I know, so that I'm eating a lot of bananas.
This is a tuber.
Yeah.
It says a tuber.
I do that too much. And that's what
So like I mostly plant-based, and since I've done that, it's just amazing. Like, clarity.
a friend of my colleague of mine just did that. I think she's tiny. She lost like 20 pounds.
Oh wow, but it's not for weight loss.
But that's what
That was her
happened, pretty
goal?
much.
Yeah.
Like, she was trying to lose weight and then she just had a baby. She was trying to do that and that was amazing.
Yeah, I've been there with the babies. She's seen me. Oh yeah, I was huge.
Thanks.
I was like 3 times my size with both of my kids. Like I just like pile it on. I love to eat. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I just love to eat for pregnancy.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah.
Maybe it's genetic.
You're calling my mom fat?
Well, what are the
Okay.
So reset.
We'll get started.
Again,
You have everyone? Gaurav? Yeah, I'll just wait for Gaurav to come in and then we're good to roll.
They left already?
What's that?
Well, welcome everybody to our first meetup of 2020. Thank you so much for coming. This is our third meetup that we've hosted so far, and the buzz around it has been amazing and incredible. And I've had folks reaching out to me, ladies reaching out to me, trying to understand when our next meetup is going to be. So it's just so awesome to see the turnout and the interest. This year, 2020, we have renewed our commitment to diversity and inclusion. We are making the needle move. We had our very first successful cohort, and we had lovely ladies graduate from the cohort, and just to see their determination has been just mind-blowing. They commuted from different areas in the Bay Area, spending 2 to 3 hours in commute. Just to see that was amazing. And I'll ask you guys to talk about it, Deepa, and just talk about your experience and your feedback. It would be great for other folks to kind of hear about it. Jaya, would love to hear from you maybe later on. What we want to do here is make tech purple and provide a level playing field for women and underrepresented groups. We're gonna work tirelessly to make tech purple. I've seen men hire men in my career. I've been a recruiter for 20 years, and it's made me kind of question, these are very indelicate questions, and you have like reflection over it, sober reflection over it. It's gonna be really hard to change these hardwired mindsets, but we're gonna make a very concrete effort towards it. Through education, through success stories and platform like this, a diversity program like this. So it's not just a smoke screen, it's real effort in D&I to make the needle move. I'm so proud to create a community of women and engage them. And we have a great panel, self-made ladies. So excited to hear you guys talk about your journey, data science journey, your tech journey. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It was just amazing to have you at our last meetup talk about your experience. And some of the things that you said just really resonated with me as well. So yeah, we're just so excited to hear Saru speak and her experience as well. That being said, I'm going to invite Gaurav, our think tank, kindred spirit, to talk more about what we do. And then we have some exciting announcements that Suva is going to make about the cohort. So yeah, all right.
Welcome everyone. I'm Gaurav. I was instructed to wear this sweater to mark the occasion. Purple color. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about BayOne and why we're doing it, who we are, and what we do for a living. Let me see if I can get that. For the schedule of the day, we're starting at 6:30 sharp, which is fantastic. We are expecting more people to come in as we roll, but we're just going to keep rolling. I'll have Suva introduce the panel, the cohort, and then get into a really fun panel discussion. I've heard some of the panelists before. I'm looking forward to hearing you. Fantastic panel discussion, so I'm looking forward to it. Then Suva will come back and talk about the data science cohort this is our second cohort, so we'll hear more about it. In time for Q&A, make the most of this meetup. So get to know each other, ask a lot of questions, and just mingle. That would be my encouragement. In terms of what BayOne is, we're committed to seeing more women in tech, in data science, and everywhere else, because that's good for our clients. It's good for the community, and it's what we do. Now, you already heard from Neha. Let me just get into. By the way, this was a trip out in the Bay. This was a fun boating trip expedition. No one died. No one fell over. So far so good. All right. So something should happen on this side. What should happen on this side? I just keep pressing until something happens. Yeah, keep pressing. Oh, okay. All right. So what is BayOne about? So I'll give you a quick preview in terms of what BayOne is. We
have a lot of folks, Gaurav, sorry to interrupt, joining online.
Okay.
And the line is very quiet, so I just hope they are able to hear you.
If you're online and you can hear me and see me, please say something on the chat box, and that'll be great. You can nod your head, but we can't see you, so just give us a chat comment, and that would be great. Okay, so we'll look out for your text. Hopefully, were you able to dial in and see if the thing is working?
You could hear.
You cannot hear?
Yeah, but I can see you.
You can see me, but not hear me. I mean, in theory, this should work. So while we're trying this out, let me tell you what BayOne, what we do. So what's happening is there's a lot of buzz about the future of work. And the reason there is buzz about the future of work is every industry is becoming tech. You look at finance, fintech, retail, retail tech, hotel tech, food tech, farm tech, in fact, toilet tech, I heard about 2 weeks ago at CES. Kohl put out some internet connected stuff, you know what I'm talking about. So, and exercise tech, fitness tech, Peloton. So there's a lot of change in the world that's going on where every industry is becoming tech. And as a result of becoming tech, they're looking for talent. Because how are you going to survive as a company if you don't have access to talent? And what's happening in the world of talent is it used to be companies would hire most people internally. And for the next 20, 30 years, nothing would happen. People can come in and go out at the other end of their careers. Now what's happening is there's a very high demand for technology talent. And that demand for technology talent, this is what BayOne does, really 3 things. We help bring experts on demand. We help level up internal and external teams. So you're going to hear about the LevelUp program. And we help automate stuff, which are all the things that companies are trying to do right now. They're trying to automate mundane work. They're trying to level up their own employees. We were just talking before we started that when I started my career, C#, C++ used to be the thing. And now, then Java came along sometime later, then JavaScript came along sometime later, and now it's full stack, and now you got to know everything. You don't need to know programming as much as you got to know everything, the whole stack. So everything is changing. And because of that, if people have worked in their own organizations for long, they haven't kept up with the changes in technology, which means there is a very strong need to level up the internal organization. And the third thing we do is help bring experts on demand. So that's what we do. It's a fun place to be in. Every large company is undergoing a massive transformation. And through the efforts that we're doing, we're hoping to bring more women into tech, more women into data science, which is great for our business. It's great for our clients. It's great for you. And so no one loses in this bargain, which is fantastic. So that's about BayOne. We work with many clients. I'm going to skip through this really busy slide. I made this slide. No one should see this slide. It's busy, but we partner with a lot of clients on their journeys of transformation. That's all there is to be said. Suva is going to come as soon as he brings the chairs in. We do level up programs for clients. We do 90-minute meetups. So in fact, tomorrow, Paula and Suva are doing a 90-minute brown bag on data science, actually, at one large company. We also do one-day seminars. We do 2-day product, senior management workshops. We do 90-day hands-on transformations as well, and 5-day certification. So we do a lot of different things for different clients. But there's a lot of interest in learning and leveling up within client organizations. So that's what we do. Suva drives that. So I'm going to call Suva in to describe that. Before that, I just do want to introduce you to Rahul. Rahul is the founder of this company and the sponsor of the whole Make Tech Purple storyline. So Rahul, would you please come in and
he's sponsored by pizza.
Yes, pizza guy. If you guys don't like pizza, then it's him.
if you like it,
or yeah. Okay, so welcome. The last year we did an experiment by starting this cohort for the very first time. So it was very successful. So some of the ladies are here and they can talk about it. So, and I was surprised some of the ladies were traveling 2 hours coming to the cohort and they stayed for whole program, like 12 weeks, 10, 12, 8 weeks. So complete 8 weeks, they come all the time, and they really enjoyed it. And we had a great success. I think 40% of them already found jobs in data science, and they were completely from a different field. So that encouraged us to launch it again for this year. And why we started this, it's very personal actually. I have a daughter, and I had a chat with her, like, you know, being in tech, obviously you want your daughter or your kids to be in tech because that's what you know. So I talked to her this year. She went to high school. Before that, we were not talking about it. I started asking, like, what do you want to do? So tech was not in her picture at all. And I asked why. And she said, it's like, none of my friends want to go in tech because it feels like they don't belong there. So, and then we start looking the data. So 10, 15 years back, the ratio was much better. There are almost around 38% women in tech. And today it is 21%. You with this technology, you would be thinking it's getting better, but it's not. So then we thought we need to do something. And then second reason was, any client I go, I see only weird, or those people are sitting, we need some pretty faces there. We need more creativity in the workforce there. So those are the two reasons we started. And thank you for coming. And hopefully, I think you're going to enjoy it. And Suva would going to give you a little bit more information on it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Suva ran the entire last cohort. He's a fun teacher. He's a great communicator, and truly is passionate about what he's doing. You'll hear a lot of his passion now. Suva, please.
All right. Thank you, Nehal, for organizing this. Thank you, Gaurav, for your inspiration, and Rahul as well. So we have 4 wonderful ladies who's going to share a panel discussion with us tonight. And for those of you on the phone, please mute your lines unless you have a nice comment to make or a question to ask. Okay. All right. So for those of you who did the cohort last time, some of you ladies are here. I will put you on the spot in a couple of minutes. This is what you got. You still have this? All right. Wonderful, wonderful. And welcome back again. And I know some of you are dialed in by phone. So here's the certificate that all of you got. Everybody passed. And as Rahul was mentioning, some of you were able to change your careers and move to something related to data science, either project management on data science projects, program management, as well as data analytics and all. So actually, let me take this opportunity to ask maybe one of you to come and share that experience. So the objective of tonight's meetup is to have all of you sort of network, number one. Number two, we will have a panel discussion with the ladies as well. But before we go there, very briefly, anybody? Do you want to come up, Deepa, and just talk briefly? Or Jaya, please? Or Sangeeta? Do you want to come? All right. Okay. So very briefly, Sangeeta, if you can tell the rest of us, what was your experience, what you were expecting, and how did it go? What was your transition?
Hi, everyone. So before coming here, I was like a C# developer, and then I took a break for many years, like 3-4 years. So I wanted to continue my career. I came here, and here it was like wonderful environment. He was really good coach. I mean, like, he trained us really very well. He gave good training in data science. And we are looking to get a very, very good job. We are working on it. We are doing project currently, which is coming very good. Thank you.
Awesome. Sangeeta, I did not pay her to say that. The pizza doesn't count, right? Okay. Deepa, when you want to share some of your thoughts?
So, first of all, thank you, BayOne and everybody for the opportunity. Yeah, it was a very good cohort. We got really good foundation in data science, and we should be able to build upon that. So we are working on a project, as Sangeeta said.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So quick question to you. What was the surprise element, given that this was fully sponsored by BayOne? What were your expectations or lack thereof coming in, and
Right.
What did you see?
Since it was free, I didn't expect anything.
And then it was a great surprise. It was a wonderful, I mean, I would recommend people to pay and come for this cohort. So that was very good. And Suva is a great teacher. So he kept us engaged, and you know, we wanted to come every week and learn more. So that was wonderful.
So thank you, Deepa. And where did you commute from? And your carpool mate?
So I carpooled with Poonam. Poonam lives in South Bay and I work in South Bay, so we used to commute.
Somewhere near Sunnyvale, and then to Santa
Sunnyvale,
Clara, and then
yeah.
here. And the first night you were here, how long did it take you?
First night it took us almost 4 hours.
4 hours, one way. The 680 was closed for a while that night. This was October. And they still came here smiling. And they still took the test the next day. And they did really well. So thanks to them. That was really great. Jay, you want to speak briefly about your experience? Yeah. So, you know, join our Kohl, you get some exercise as well, by the way. So we do a lot of participation. So, yeah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Actually, we started when we came here. First day we didn't come. Actually, we don't know here the BayOne is really the data science. But we have some thoughts about data science. The future is going to be data science. Without data, it's not nothing is going to be. So we thought, okay, so for mine, I have drive for 5 years. Previously, I was working in C# developer. What it's going to be in future. It should be like it should be more useful in future. So I thought, okay, we learned data science. So we came here. So it's a very good, wonderful instructor, I can say. We encouraged to learn the basic thing. Everyone got very clear basic things. The basic things are important, right? Whatever you are learning after that, we will build it. But before that, the basic thing should be clear. That was very, very good for us. Very good, wonderful session. Thank you, Suva, and thank you for BayOne. Now we are doing the projects. Very good. Thank you.
Wonderful job. All right, so that was a brief advertisement for our cohort. Again, it's fully sponsored by BayOne. Thank you, Rahul. And like you see, all the wonderful ladies and their beat-up instructor and their certificates. So now we will have for you this. The reason you're all here is we'll have a panel discussion. We have 4 wonderful ladies here in the audience tonight. I'll just move those chairs fairly quickly up here, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, if any of you have questions for Neha or Gaurav or Rahul, feel free to ask while we make the logistical arrangements. Please, any questions? No questions? So we are a consulting house. We do IT services. The cohort is fairly basic. I mean, if you haven't had any data science exposure, it's not easy to be a data scientist in the sense that it takes time, it takes experience. There are 3 core components to this, and I know our panelists will talk about that as well, right? You have to be a good programmer. You need to learn the data science skills essentially around, you know, AI, machine learning, whatever component, deep learning, whatever area of expertise you're pursuing, and then domain expertise as well. So these 3 things come together is what makes a good data scientist. However, as you will see during our course, is not everybody builds models. That's just a small fraction of what happens in the ecosystem. There is an entire segment of data engineering. It's sort of a pipeline, right? Data is coming in from a source, and then you're doing something to it. First of all, you're storing it, you're cleaning it, there's a bunch of stuff happening, and then you're trying to derive insights out of it. And so there are different opportunities career-wise. You can also be like a couple of our cohort members became program managers in a data science team. And they thought that whatever they learned here over the course of 2 months was very helpful for them pursuing that. without doing that, they would no way be able to sort of facilitate program management in a team that runs a data science center of excellence, because they understood what is happening behind the scenes, right? So that's what comes into play. So yeah, it depends where you are starting, how much you learn in the next 2 months, what kind of projects you do, and then you'll be able to hopefully take the next step that takes you towards that destination. Okay, and hopefully, yes.
Multiple tracks people can get the job in data science.
Yes.
It's not like you have to, everybody has to be a data scientist. So there are program managers, product managers, all those.
Data engineers, data engineering is a big field. As I was alluding to, the core data science team per se is about 5% of the effort overall for Google. And they say 15% of the expenses, and everybody asks me why the disparity. I say that's because data scientists makes 3 times the amount of money. That's why it's 5% and 50%, but maybe we can talk about that. So please join me in welcoming Sunita Sharma. Please welcome. Just quite your pictures so that people can relate who you are. Okay, and we have, she's a software development director at Oracle. We also have with us Paula Wome. Paula is the founder and CEO of Ascend Networks. She comes with an intensive hardware networking background. We also have with us Harini Karthik. Welcome, Harini. She's a data science director at Shift, which is now part of Target.
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Welcome. And we have the lady hidden behind that, right there. Welcome, Saru. Saru is a data scientist at LevelUp, and we will talk about their very interesting journeys. And she especially has a very interesting journey starting off in biomed and genetics and getting into data science, right? So we would love to hear that. So let me start here first off with Sunita and ask you about a little bit about your background, what you do at Oracle, and you spent a few years at GE Digital as well. So for the benefit of our audience and the fact that the meetup is about tech and women, what got you into tech and how has your career progressed in the last 15, 20 years?
Okay. So what got me into tech? Well, that was really not by choice, to be honest. I was given 2 choices, either become engineer or doctor. So I chose easier path. So I went to engineering to BITS Pilani. It's a prestigious college in India, if you don't know. So that's how my tech journey started. So I was doing my electronics engineering, and then now I got into computers. So I'll just give you some a brief journey description of how I got here. So I did my engineering. Then everybody was coming to US, and I figured, well, I should also go to US. So got married, came here then started working, and then I figured, I should do some computers degree also. So I wanted to do masters. So started doing masters in computer engineering from San Jose State. That was part-time while working full-time. So I would say that really gave me a very good insight into computers. Although I started working in computers after my electronics engineering, but still I felt like it made my experience so complete. Like I could really understand integrals of it and really started working on projects. And so because I started my career as well as I did my master's, so it really gave me a very good insight into all that. So started working as developer, then I became manager in a few years and started hiring people, building teams, and so life was good. So it's like the challenges, I would say, how I got from developer to development director. It's a 20 plus years of journey and a lot of hard work and all that. But what I would say is there's a lot of persistence. Persistence is really the key in what you want to do. Persistence and focus and of course passion, right? And sometimes there are things that you're passionate about, and sometimes you can find something that you can find passion in it. Like there's a different way to look at things. So I started working in, there's a company called BMC Software as a developer. did some, built some products and went to Oracle. So I was with Oracle for 9 years. Then I was contacted by this company, GE Digital, here in Sanyal. And so this was a better offer, and I was going to get an opportunity to work in IoT space, data science and analytics. And it was really a big buzzword, and just I felt like I should go for it. And the opportunity seemed really good, in terms of the job opportunity and the team I was going to manage and all of that. But what I would say is, like, in all of this, like, I really enjoyed my work over at GE. It just gave me a really good experience in how things work in real life. Like, I worked with, I understood like how the aircraft engines work, how the turbines work, like how can you find out that the aircraft engine is going to need some preventive maintenance, for example. So the data science experience in GE really gave me, it actually gave me some passion to start. That's where I started thinking that it's really my passion, that I want to understand what data can do for you. And somebody was saying, like, without data, you can't do anything. Right? So the data has so much of power. And if you look at some of the job descriptions, right? Or like if you talk to some people who are in data science, they'll say, what kind of data do you want to collect? I want to collect all the data, for example. So like, it's like, first you collect the data, then you figure out what you can do with it. But the key is that there's a lot of science behind data. The more companies are trying to gather more and more data so they can give value, like in terms of predictive analytics, you can get value from the data. So anyway, so just to make the story short, and then I'm sure we'll have more topics to cover, but my journey from developer to being sort of expert, I wouldn't say expert, but still good experience in data science and analytics, I feel like this is a space I want to be, and I want to grow more in this area and learn more and contribute. So that's all for now, and then I'm sure.
Yeah, we will have a lot of follow-up questions. So thank you for sharing your story. So, Paula, will come to you. Likewise, where did you start your journey, and what got you into entrepreneurship and starting your own company, and how has been the journey, and how easy or difficult was it being a lady and pursuing that?
Okay, sure. So my background is very different. So I actually, so I own a STEM network. So how I got started to work with that. So I came to the United States at a very young age of 5, probably more than 30 years ago. So I'm a first-time entrepreneur, first person to graduate from college. I have lots of siblings, so I didn't have, I still don't have a sibling to role model or to look after, but I like school. My parents brought me here, family here, because we want a better life. And I studied, I was a nerd growing up, and I just kept going. I went to a lot of school in elementary. I was likely to succeed. I ran for student body vice president. I just kept going, and it was just in my gene to self-study. So and then I went to Cal State East Bay. It used to be Cal State Hayward. And I graduated with an option in accounting and CIS, or Management Information System. And I thought I wanted, in elementary, I wanted to be a teacher. And then I went to college, I wanted to be a CPA. It was just something in accounting. I like math. Math is one of my strongest topic. And then I went to work for a small CPA in Hayward after I graduated. I had an intern, and I was really bored. So good thing I did double major. So I worked at the student lab at Cal State East Bay, and I love technology. It was just something that I was never bored, so I just kept going. And then at the time, I think it was about 1996. It was right when Microsoft was very popular, and the whole operating system, the computer, PC, and I went to Fry's and bought a lot of electronics because I wanted to learn how to do PC. So I bought everything instead of buying. I said to myself, why don't I just build it? So I built my own computer at age 10, 11. And it was very interesting. I learned the whole process. So I got a lot of tips from, I have to give credit to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I've been watching that. I learned so much from TV and motivation. So, and at the same time, it was right during the .com boom. So I went to work for a startup. It was an advertisement company. And so I had a really good colleague. He was actually, I was a system admin at the time, and he was a network engineer. And he was like, and he knew my work ethic. I was working really hard. Everybody there worked really hard. So it was probably one of my best jobs there. And he's like, Paula, you should go into networking. I said, okay. So he just, yeah, he was, I really looked up to him. And then the opportunity came where they wanted to grow the network. So we built, just me and him mostly, built the data center. The company grew from 200 to about 600. We worked day and night, 18 hours a day, but it was still something, it was not a job or anything. I looked up, I mean, every day in the morning, I was looking forward to work. So, and then I got laid off. Just to make a long story short, I got laid off. We lost connection for a little bit, and then there came WebEx. He went to work at WebEx, and he's like, Paula, you know, okay. He was doing me a favor, trying to give me a job at WebEx. So something happened. I did get a job there. I actually had a very good package, and before I was going to move onto his team, so we could have fun, you know, working with a friend that you know. So right before my 1-year anniversary, where I was going to report to managers, the manager that I reported to, I knew more than her. So the whole team there just ganged up against me, and she got written up, and then I got fired. So I was like, okay, I got laid off on my first job. You know, I loved the job, and then I got fired. I was like, no, this is not gonna happen. I'm not gonna work for another company. So, and then I went and got a lot of my certification, and then there came an opportunity. I did want to work at Cisco, so I go to work at Cisco for several years because I have my certification. And I worked there 5 years. I had another certification, and that was it. And it's just something that happened to me that told me, okay, I'm not a corporate person. That I need to do something. I get bored. I tend to sit down. None of that. It just and I did a lot of networking. So I left the full-time corporate world, and then I was moonlighting on the side, working on project-based consulting. I worked for Salesforce, Expedia, Howard, San Francisco. I really liked that type of work, and I branched out, did a lot of networking. I actually know a lot of business owners right now who are in a similar field in IT, but their field is a little bit different. I do have a mentor. He and I actually, we were colleagues. Actually, he was going to hire me. It didn't work out. And then I went to work at Salesforce. He was my colleague. And then now he's my manager. So I looked up to him still. So he gives me advice. So I still do a lot of networking. I go to trade show to try to grow the business, do an expo here yearly. So yeah, I think like Sunny said, it is a lot of hard work. You do have to be persistent. It is not easy. Even today is a challenge for me because I do have a goal, but you set your own goal, but if you don't meet that goal, you feel shit, right? The next day you go, it's like, okay, I don't know, you know, I'm not going to give up. I do listen to a lot of audiobooks. I do network a lot, and that gives me that motivation. So you do, I think it's important to have a good network too, so somebody to lean on to, so that you don't fall back off track. Don't give up. And that's it.
Wonderful, Paula. And you know, wonderful. So great to hear your story along with Sunita's as well. And the one I think sort of gives you the long answer, Sushma, to the question you asked is the light is there at the end of the tunnel. It does take a lot of time. It does take perseverance, as you can hear from these ladies, right? And you hear more. So just wanted to interject there. Just think through it, especially when you're returning to the workforce after a gap, like had a baby or something, right? Many women undergo that several times in their career. The second is you are at a job for maybe decades. You don't like it. You want to undergo a transition. Maybe you like the work, but not the company, or vice versa. How do you do this? It's sometimes not a single step journey. It requires multiple steps. There is a beautiful book. It is a bit cliched now, but you can definitely take a look. It's called What Color is Your Parachute? It talks about career transitions and role transitions. And there is another beautiful book written around networking. I think Paula mentioned about that as well. Both she's in the networking space and also meeting people and getting work done. And it's called Dig Your Well Before You Are Thirsty. Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. It's a tiny book, but it's, when I started management consulting many years ago, they gave me that as a Bible and they said, read this before your first day. And that teaches you how to deal with people when you need them. Right?
I'm glad you're not quizzing people
already. The cohort ladies know about it.
Yeah, they know the number and they know you're about to ask it.
Yes. So I cold call. So now I'll be cold calling. All right. Harini, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you here with us tonight. So again, from your perspective, your journey, your career, and from the days of your electronics and electrical communication undergrad to becoming a data scientist and then leading a team. How did that happen? Was it a single step? Probably not. Lead us through that journey.
For me, I think it was about self-discovery, because when I started the data career, data wasn't a career. Data wasn't a big thing back then. And so I did my undergrad in electronics and communication engineering, partly because I liked everything. I have a hard time choosing. I like a little bit of everything. I like learning. I constantly love learning, and I really believe in the growth mindset. And I think I picked electronics and communication because you had the hardware components. With the electronics and communication, you had a lot of the communication, cellular communication and signal processing and all of that. And then you also did a lot of computer engineering and programming courses. And I felt it would be a good, I think it had great breadth, and I think I chose it for that. And I think once I did that, I worked as a consultant in tech for a while, and that wasn't, I felt something was missing. And partly it's me wanting to know everything about the business. And I think I was missing components that I really didn't have. And that led me, I reflected a lot, probably for a couple of years before figuring out what I really wanted to do. And I realized what was the common thing that I've always loved since I was a kid. And that was math. Be it electronics or be it physics or be it anything, the underlying thing that was beneath everything was math. And so I think I did a very unconventional thing, which is after an engineering degree, I went to grad school for math. And I think I did it because I just loved math. At that point, I didn't know where exactly that would lead me to. And during my master's program, I actually had the opportunity to try out various careers with internships. And I felt that was very eye-opening for me, because I think some people know exactly what they want in life. Some people have to discover it, and I think I'm the latter. And for me, I first interned as an actuary. Actuaries are people who work in insurance companies, and they it's pretty quantitative and mathematically intensive. I tried that. And then I tried being a commodities trader, because that's also being a quant pretty much on Wall Street with 4 monitors, tried that too. And then I also tried being a fixed income asset analyst, where these are treasuries and other things that fixed assets, trying to analyze for the financial markets. And finally, I had the opportunity to intern in analytics. And back then it was called business intelligence. And when I did that, I was like, this is it. And the reason for me this was it was because I think it was bringing together my technology or engineering background, but my love for math, along with a business application to drive growth for companies. So using data to find insights to help people make better decisions and drive growth. And once I got to that, got to experience that, I think I decided that was really it. And since then, I've stuck to this career where I've been leading now data teams where I lead data teams that include data engineering, data science, as well as business analytics. And I think they're all three foundational pillars that can really help companies drive growth. And I truly do think that a lot of the future, everything is becoming more data driven and more AI driven and machine learning. And I think one thing that always excites me or fascinates me is when we think machine learning and neural networks is one of the concepts within artificial intelligence. And the reason it's called that is because that's how our brains work. So if you think about it, we are machine learning. And for me, it's also about how do we work? How do we, how does everything work in our brains, and how do we process, and how do we have our training sets and our subconscious biases and unconscious biases and all of that. So that's been my journey thus far, and I've been leading data teams at various tech startups here in San Francisco. I currently lead data science and analytics for Shift, and we're owned by Target. We provide same-day delivery for grocery delivery and other delivery. We're very similar to Instacart. In addition to that, I'm also a data advisor to several startups, and I also am a data ambassador with DataKind, which works with nonprofits. And the data science tries to harness the power of data science in the service of humanity, and it's more of a volunteer work there. So that's really my my journey thus far.
Wonderful. Arini, welcome. I promise the follow-up questions will have to be shorter than this. I don't know about the answers. The question is going to be short. So for the three ladies that are here in the room who have been part of the cohort, please have a good question for Arini in the next round, okay? So think about use cases. Think about whatever you can think of. If you think you had some doubts around why did we use this versus that, okay, let's show her that they've done their homework. So whether it is a data engineering, data science, or analytics BI type question from your perspective during your learning, if you thought, right, either as a use case or otherwise, just think through that. Still remember after the year, RNN, CNN? Yeah? Long short-term memory? Yeah? Okay, good. All right, that brings us to our fourth guest tonight. Thank you, Sarah, for waiting so patiently. So now you had the lead with three speakers before you. So we expect you to give us really profound answers. Just kidding. All right, so Sarah is like one of you. She started off her career entirely in a different domain, and now she's a data scientist. How did you do that? A story of your journey.
Okay, so I did my undergrad at Davis, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be a doctor. So I did it in genetics, and I graduated with genetics, and I applied, took the MCAT twice, and got into Drexel med school. And then I dropped out on the welcome week. The reason for that was I felt being a geneticist or just an undergrad in genetics, I felt like I was doing a lot of manual work. Like my hours were mostly in a lab, and I'm just collecting data and following protocols. But the data that we're collecting was very old school way of storing it. It was in our lab books or, okay, lab books to Excel. My manager, these were mostly PhD like geneticists, and I wasn't sure if they were analyzing it the way I thought they would. We're spending so many hours like crushing up mice or Drosophila flies and extracting their DNA, and I'm just like, okay, what? Can I see some visualization? Can I see what are we trying to do here? And that kind of got me into thinking, is med school, like, I mean, to have a brain of being a doctor is like, okay, following protocols, you memorize a lot of things that, and then maybe like when you have a lot of experience as a surgeon, you can invent new things. I was more of, okay, I kind of want to be the everything. I want to know what problem I'm solving, and I want to think like in a way as an engineer, like, okay, this is step one, this function will do this task, and then pass it to the next function. So after that, I had no background in computer science, and I did my post-bac at SS State. And my initial goal there was just to get the prereqs and then transfer to do computer science, like my master's at another university. So I basically did my second undergrad in computer science. And then this whole, but now it's 2012-ish, and this whole data science, machine learning was like coming into play. And I took my GRE for the second time, and I got a score that qualified me into the Berkeley's data science program. And I was like, okay, should I do computer science, or should I go into this new upcoming field called data science? Which road do I take? And so my gut was telling me, let's try data science, since a lot of people, I've heard a lot of stories of software engineers going into data science, and they have a different perspective and different duties as someone who's coming from business analyst into data science, or a non-technical profession. So I decided to do data science at Berkeley, and I was on the accelerated track because I wanted to just focus. I didn't want any job at that time. I just wanted to finish fast and then get a job. So I finished in 1.5 years. And people were part-time, so they took 3 years or so. And my first job, and this was towards my last semester, I applied to Cisco's, the Berkeley has like these recruiting events. And so I got an internship at Cisco, and I was in customer insights and advanced analytics. So the last semester is the hardest semester. So I did my internship and completed my capstone project. And then from Cisco, they offered me from intern to like full-time. And so I was working on that too. It was actually very interesting. Cisco has a lot of data, and the team that I was working with was in sales and marketing, and they were still using SAS, which was, they didn't teach SAS in Berkeley because it's kind of like out of date. And so I was the only one who knew R and Python, but I guess we chose R for statistics. It had more statistical packages. And so my boss, who I'm still like friends with, and I have a side project with him, he wanted, one project was they have like a news database. It's called Thomson Reuters. And whatever Cisco's customers were, Juniper's competitor, I forgot, like HP or Intel or whoever their customers are, we wanted to address before they could address it, looking at the news, what are their problems? Are they in need of databases? Are they expanding? Are they having layoffs? Are they having issues with latency? What are their problems? And those problems, the goal was to match it with a Cisco solution. So it was a lot of like text, it was a lot of scraping. It was a lot of storing. It was also a lot of text analytics and clustering and topic modeling and matching a problem with a solution. And so, and after that, like just getting these categorical variables, like whatever experiment or proof of concept I was doing, those can be used for more into their predictive models. And the predictive model that my team was doing was to predict Cisco's wallet in the next quarter. So, so this was another feature. The corpus matching of the problem to the solution was going to expand on their predictive model that they had. They find more features.
Wow. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So great. And where are you now? You're at LevelData,
yes.
right? Okay, okay. And you're a data scientist there.
I am a data
Wonderful. And how many years have you been at LevelData now?
It has been 2.5 years.
Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome. Welcome. So as you can see, the domain, the four ladies and how they started their journey, and Saru, I have a lot of questions for you as well in terms of use cases, and especially for ladies who have done the cohort in the past, they definitely could relate to some of those examples, looking at, for example, Thomson Reuters and, extracting new feeds and news feeds. And even before a company realizes that they are in trouble potentially, telling them that, hey, you have a problem and we have a potential solution to that problem is awesome, right? That's how businesses should function. And that's a great use case to exploit. I know some of you are working on projects, so try to make it as unique as possible. I'll give you another example. When the flu was pandemic a few years ago, of all the sources, Google had the best map of where the flu was the worst. Guess how? It was going by Google searches. People were Googling symptoms. And even before the patient knew that he or she had flu, Google knew it. They could see these patterns. That's amazing. That is data science. So any questions for our panelists? We'll go back and forth. I have a lot of questions, but I want to give you some opportunity as well. Anything you want to ask them?
So what are the tools that you work as a data scientist?
Okay, so starting from Cisco, I used Elasticsearch. I used Spark, R at that time. At this company, LevelData, it's a startup, and I started in Series A, so our infrastructure was really bad. We went from MySQL to Postgres to now Redshift, which is still SQL. We are using a lot of AWS services, Oh, sorry. We want to transfer to Spark. There's something, I don't want to sound too technical, but there's Redshift UBS. And we're using Python now instead of R at this job. I guess the tools that I'm mentioning are more data engineering, I would say. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other quick question? Okay.
What's your advice for women trying to enter data science?
I think my advice is always that I would say 3 pillars, as I mentioned. There is the data engineering component, which is more, I would say, on computer science and computer engineering. There is the math component, which is more data science, and then there's business analytics, just understanding the business and being able to effectively storytell. And I think there is sometimes a tendency for people to want all of it together, but that intersection set is extremely small and rare. A lot of times we have to, I think, learn a little bit of all of it, but tend to specialize in one of them. Of course, there's always a management track available, but so I would always recommend doing formal education. I think all of us sitting here have all done extensive education. In fact, when I was doing my master's, I was working full-time. I was studying my master's part-time, and I was pregnant. Right, so it's I think, there are those times sometimes, I look back, I'm not sure how I did it, but I think we all have that in us, that there are a few home stretches that we have to do. So I would highly recommend some sort of more formal education, for sure. And in addition to a lot of these types of, I think what BayOne is providing a foundation to figure out, how you like it and where you would like to specialize. And then I think you can keep building upon. I think the key here, I think, is to continuously keep learning and updating, because even in data science, we have new languages every year and new models coming out all the time. So I think continuous learning, in addition to formal education, I think it would be a good combination.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Any other questions?
So the conventional models are still available, or like you still using the data science thing?
I think there are many models that we use, but I think this is going back to what he was saying a little bit earlier. I think data engine. If I had to put, if there is 100% universe, and if I had to look at what type of work is being done, I think 50% is probably data engineering. Piping the data, cleansing the data, it's extremely challenging. And then there's about, I would say 40% is more analytics, wrangling that data, finding the right insights and storytelling, and making sure we're helping drive growth for the company. The other 10% I would say is probably more on the modeling side. And on the modeling side, I think the main types, anytime we're trying to predict something, whether we're trying to predict sales or we're trying to predict some sort of thing, we use models. We do use some conventional models, like everything from regressions to everything from random decision trees to neural networks. I would say, and natural language processing. I would say those are the main buckets that we use. But I think the techniques keep evolving over time as there are newer and newer packages being available and newer papers coming out. So I would say it's constantly fine-tuned to make it better, but the foundational concepts are probably similar.
Wonderful. And now that we are at that, let me be a little bit more specific in terms of the question. So if you can give us an Indian example, maybe at Shift or otherwise, a simple use case and what kind of model you might have used or tweaked, either NLP or we'd love to hear your use case. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think many data science use cases. I can say one example is a little bit background about Shift is we are so Shift is a four-sided marketplace that has members who place orders. So you can, for example, go to Shift and order things from Target, and then it'll get delivered to you by a shopper. So we have members, we have shoppers who shop and deliver them to your home. And we also partner with 70+ retailers. And then the other side is we are an ad platform for CPG manufacturers. So we are a membership-based model for subscription. So for members, they have to pay a subscription, very similar to Netflix, for example, or Amazon Prime. So this is just background so that the example that I'm giving you can be a little bit more relevant. So we are both a subscription-based business as well as a retail business. And so one of the things, because we are a subscription-based business, for us, predicting churn is extremely important to understand growth and how many new people we need to acquire. Because, for example, if I acquire, let's say in January 2019, if I acquired, let's say 100,000 new customers, only a fraction of them would still be there today, right? Because of the churn. By churn, it just means people dropping off. They're just not being retained. So churn becomes extremely important in subscription-based businesses. So one of the main models that we've built is a churn prediction model. And this uses a lot of information about each member, how they came to us, what type of plans they came to us, what their engagement has been, what types of products they've been purchasing, what type of retailers they've been working with. So I would say there are like 100+ data points that we collected to create feature engineering. So to come up with the different data points, and then we've tried many different models. I think, for example, there is, I would say in this case, we ended up using random forest, which is a decision tree, to understand whether a person would churn or not within a certain period of time. And at this point, I would say we have like 90% accuracy with that, which is, I think, has been amazing. But that is one, and this feeds into our entire forecast for the company, the growth, and this helps us understand how many people may potentially drop off and what the revenue decrease may be, and how many more do we need to bring back to the platform. So that's one example.
So why random forest? Why not other classification models we can implement in this?
So we try many. I think in data science, we don't pick one. I think, especially because I think we are at a stage today where all the models are so readily available in Python or even R, that the reality is we should be, I think there's a little trend towards data science automation. There are many tools, be it SageMaker or Amazon or Data Robot. There are many tools that actually will run 100 models through as well. So I think where we're headed is we try many models. We see which is, one, the most accurate, two, which is the easiest to implement, and three, which is the easiest to explain, because you also need to explain to your CEO. So I think it's a combination of those that helps us pick. But in my experience, I would say random forest is one of those that it's a safe bet, which has generally given good results for many of the business applications. But that's not going to meet every single business, every single question. But I think it's a good starting point.
And for those of you in the audience who need to know what's a random forest and what is Hari talking about, join our cohort. Was there a follow-up question?
So yeah, like back to the question of who said, right, these are all being automated now. It's a click saying, run these, figure out, I have my data here, here's, at least in Oracle, that's how we have it. Right? There's data here, run these models, figure out. So where do you think are the most jobs needed? Is it just to analyze the data, since all these models are readily available and you need to just tweak them? Or is it developing those, those models themselves? Or
yeah, I think great question, because I think the industry is constantly evolving, but I think there is space and for all of it. I think in the data science space, there are two kinds: the research kind and people who are actually developing and enhancing these algorithms, and then there's more the applied data science. I think what we do in the industry, except for maybe Google or maybe some of what you do, I think it tends to be more on the applied side. But the reason it's but we, in fact, a lot of the data scientists on my team are people who have heavy technical quantitative training, like they have PhD in a quantitative field, for example. The reason that becomes important is because it's not just about running a model through a model. It's also about fine-tuning that, and it's also about making sure that we are using the right inputs to begin with, because I think that is actually the hard part, and to come up with the right inputs actually takes a high level of skill and high level of iteration. So that's where I would say, I think it's important to understand how models work, but at the same time, there is more on the application side. So knowing your data is more. I think it's a combination. Definitely, I think knowing the data is absolutely important. And in addition, knowing what type of models would also make sense is also, I think, a very valuable skill.
Wonderful. This is a very generic question. So Sunita, you want to take a stab at it as well?
So I would say for this question, right, it's really, you need to understand data. Tools are available and you can use any tool for that matter, from what I've seen. You see, like for example, I was talking about predictive analytics, right? So say you have some metrics you want to find out from the data, and then you want to generate some alarms. For example, for aircraft engines, you really want to show that there is this combination of KPIs that you have, like the pressure, the speed, the temperature. So there's a combination of all of that to figure out how that engine works. So if you say that something is wrong with this engine, and they'll stop functioning that aircraft engine, it's a big deal, right? So really, the use case is important. Understanding what it means when you look at those KPIs to say, is it really going to indicate a problem situation? Let's say you just
raise alarms 100 times and only 5 times it's really the truth. That doesn't work well, right? So it's really, there's a credibility that you have for these kind of use cases. So it depends on what use cases you are trying to achieve. But in general, data has much more value, and then understanding what the data tells you to not generate false alarms is really important. And of course, using right tools is always important.
And Paula, from your perspective, I know you come from a very hardware-centric networking background. Any use cases at a very high level that might interest the audience? You're working with packets and switches and routers. So where is AI in all of this?
Yes, things have evolved since 10 years ago. So from my world, a good use case, if you're actually working with networks or supporting networks, is probably a network monitoring software. 10 years ago, you have a management software where things are more manual. So an IT administrator needs to actually configure everything, tune it, and configure the threshold. When are you going to get alerted at 80%, 90% CPU usage, or the bandwidth is going below, of course, is being used at 90%. So now the new network management solution is more automated, so it has a lot more AI built in. So the installation takes less than an hour, and everything is already, so the brain power is already there within the system. It depends on what vendor you go with. And because there's people working, data science people working in the back end that has all this component built in, already created this so that all you have to do is just install it on the network, and it knows what's normal and what's not. So when it sees something that's out of the norm, then you know there's something to be alarmed about. So there's less human intervention versus 10 years ago. So things are a lot more automated.
Wonderful. So we have a bunch of ladies here. Some of them started their data science journey. They've done our certification. It took 2 months, and then now they're working on their projects. So they understand the fundamentals of what modeling entails and what kind of models are there. How do you work with time series? How do you work with pictures? How do you work with regression, classification data, and all that? So they understand the basics. So the question now is, and it's a very open question, please take your turns answering this, is, and for those who are sort of aspiring potentially to join the cohort, is what would be your recommendation in terms of what should be their learning route? Where do they start? Where do they make decisions? Because there was a question earlier, if I'm spending only 5 to 10% effort in terms of modeling, and most of it is getting standardized anyway, more effort probably is needed on the engineering side and on the analytics and interpretation side. Maybe after understanding the basics, I should move into one of these territories, right? In fact, somebody told me fairly recently, I was at an AI conference in Santa Clara, which is still on. They said, AI ate software and DevOps is going to eat AI. And he was very adamant. And he said, because once everything gets standardized, all you need to work on are the orchestration frameworks. And that's where DevOps comes into play. Because technically, even software development is not what it used to be, 10, 20 years ago. People don't write programs anymore. They assemble programs. Everything is out there. Everything, most of it is now open source, right? So the way people load programs is different. There are no programs. They're all microservices, right? They write small snippets of code. So everything has changed. So from that perspective, for ladies aspiring and those who have just begun their journey, and please take your turns, what would you recommend? What should that journey look like? What is step 1? What is step 2? Please share your thoughts.
So I have this funny example. So when you said frameworks available, and then you have all these programs you can plug together. So we used to have a course, C in engineering. We used to have open book test. So and then I used to think that this open book, and I don't have to do anything. I just go and they'll give me some question, I'll copy it, and that's it. But soon after, I realized, after sort of scoring less in those exams, that even though it's open book, I really need to understand what they're asking for and how do I apply that. So it's kind of along the same lines when you said, yeah, it's all available, but it's very important for you to know how to use that information, right? And how to apply that. So I would say, like, if you understand some use case, look at that use case and think of it from user perspective, right? What is the use case? You really look at yourself as a user. When you are trying to solve a problem, what is it that you're trying to solve? And how would you solve it? What would be sort of the journey, right? So when you look at use case, you define the journey and how you arrive to that conclusion, the result that you want to get. So understanding that use case and then plugging that with the implementation part of it will give you much more enriched experience and you will understand it. And when you look at some other use case, even though you haven't done it, but you kind of have the approach that you can take for the second use case, the third, and so on. Basically, now then you will know the science behind how you sort of go towards sort of looking at a problem, analyzing it, and solving it. So it's like a generic question and sort of generic answer to anything like data science. You take a use case, you understand it, then you kind of know what it is what kind of data are you looking at? Like Suva was talking about, is it time series data? Is it files? Is it database data? How do you sort of, in data science also, you would correlate all of this data in some cases, and then you find out what is it that the KPIs or metrics you're trying to find out. But just understanding the application of it is very important.
Any other thoughts?
I think the question on what should be a good path, I think is something. One, I think it really depends on what you believe your strengths are, and I think it's important to understand that there are different strengths and expectations from every role. For example, in analytics, I actually focused a lot of my career on analytics because it's the closest to business strategy. I work with executives, and so things like communication, you're looking at massive amounts of data, but you need to be able to summarize it in one punchline, right? And I think things like that are extremely important in the analytics side. You need to be able to effectively story tell, and with very, very short timelines. Usually I need answers within a few minutes or an hour, right? So I think so that's one thing that's helpful to understand what type of environment you thrive in. Whereas on the flip side, you look at data engineering, it's much longer term projects. There is no business interfacing. The requirements are provided, but you're working on cutting edge things, and data engineers, just FYI, so when I try to hire, once I posted a job for analytics, I got 2,000 applicants. The same day I posted a job for data engineer, I got 50. So that just, the reason I share that is just because there is a shortage or supply and demand, right? I think there is a shortage of in the supply side for data engineers. So I think for people who enjoy the backend side of things, which includes just integrating data across sources, dealing with APIs and ETL framework and data transformation, I think if you enjoy that, there's a lot of opportunities for you. But that's very similar to software engineering. I think the way I think about the difference between data engineering and software engineering is, with software engineering, you're using JavaScript or CSS to display it on a front end, whereas with data engineering, you end up using something like a Tableau or some other front end tool to display it. But at the end, you're manipulating data. So I think data engineering is much closer to software engineering. So if you like that, I think it is a great option. If you like more of the business side of things and you enjoy communicating with stakeholders, helping them make better decisions, helping them storytell using data, I think analytics is a great fit. And for me, I think I've focused a lot on analytics, and it's helped me grow. I think everybody has a different growth path. You can grow in all areas. And in data science, I would say for me was more, I think I would say I'm definitely not a hardcore data scientist, but I leverage a lot of data science techniques to help the business grow. I think that's the bigger focus. For me, it's all about driving growth for the business. It doesn't matter whether it's data science or analytics. I think that's where I focus. So I think a lot of it is just understanding what your strengths are. And for me, I think pretty early I knew that I wasn't a full data scientist because I didn't necessarily enjoy coding all day, right? I liked doing a part of it, but not the entire day. So I think partly it's about asking yourself, what type of work do you imagine doing all day? And I think, I definitely think a great starting point for many people is analytics. In fact, in a lot of my teams, I hire people as analysts, and eventually many of them show promise, and they eventually switch over to data scientists. Because once they have a good understanding of the data, and then they also build good relationship with stakeholders, and then eventually they move into data science roles. I would say those are the best data scientists because they understand the business, they understand the data, and then they move into that role. So I would say a good starting point, in my opinion, is either analytics or data engineering. And from there, you can really build upon and move towards data science if that's what you like.
So
Great,
in
great.
that case, you don't have to do PhD or anything like that. Analytics isn't like feasible to reach that level.
Oh, absolutely. I would say, in fact, I've had like people with bachelor degrees being data scientists, but they've gone through the analytics path. There have been some who've gone data engineering path, and sometimes they even do the intersection of data engineering and data science is more machine learning engineer, which is more a modern term. But I think people go into all types of path, and I think it's difficult to predict where the future will take us exactly. But I think just making sure that you get a foot through the door and then start navigating, I think is probably will be helpful.
Follow up on that. What does a machine learning engineer do, like on a day-to-day?
Yes, great question. So in small startups or small companies, like a lot of startups, there's one person trying to do everything end to end. Data piping, analyzing the data, building machine learning model, deploying and all of that. Whereas in a lot of large companies, I think once there are people, specialists who build the model. So for example, they may be using a neural network or deep learning, any of that. They're actually building the model, but they don't actually deploy and maintain it. Because that requires a different level of specialized skill set. It requires you to perhaps have skills in Spark, for example, and just giving an example, or you need to have more APIs and microservices experience, right? So I think you need, sometimes it's more engineering heavy and less math. So that's what a lot of those machine learning engineers really work on, and they're in high demand as well. So it's the intersection of you're working on data science problems, but you're working more on deploying them and keeping the lights on those models.
Trying to understand your things. I'm not too much knowledge about IT, but you are saying that data science has more programming, right?
Data science, definitely. I think the entire area of data has a lot of programming. I think data science has more math components in it. So I think that's where that piece gets added on. So you can think about just a lot of mathematical equations written in code, right? So it's translating math into code is what data science is.
I had a similar question. I was going to ask, heard a lot about coding while you guys were talking about and programming. So it could be for any of you. So what do you think, how practical is it for someone who has zero background in programming to get into this field?
That's a real question.
Huh?
That's a very valid question.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. I think I can just share that I think it's completely fine for people to, from all backgrounds to get in, but I think the skill sets that are expected are, for example, a good working knowledge of Python, a good working knowledge of SQL, right? Those are some fundamentals that will be expected from any company. So I think and most companies have tests when you enter them. So if you are able to pass those tests, I don't think companies look into just hiring people from certain backgrounds. I think companies are opening up to all types of backgrounds. I have people with finance background on the team and things like that. So I think it's really pretty open from my experience.
So just to add to that a little bit, so one is domain experiences have been touched upon, right? So having fundamental programming experience is of course good to have. I mean, there's basic assumption that is being made. But if you have domain expertise, but not really programming experience, that's good too. Then you could be analytics area, right? So it's like, so really you need to have one of these two. If you have combination, that's, that is great, but really one is good.
What if you have no experience in your pad?
Well, you need to start somewhere.
Start somewhere else.
Yeah, so that then of course you can't do much about it, right? So it's like going blank and expecting that there will be a job out there. That won't happen, unfortunately.
So if you think of this as layers, either think left to right as a pipeline or bottom up, right? So there are these technical layers at the bottom. There is data, just zeros and ones, right? And it abstracts itself. At the top, you have business decisions to make through advanced analytics. So you decide whether you go bottom up or top down. I think the answer earlier was, if you are very mathematically oriented, if you have a programming background, if you've worked with hardware in the past, go from maybe the data engineering side. You can write programs, you can curate data, you can do that. If you have good business acumen, go the other approach, essentially start from the right and come towards the left. Start off with analytics and start learning programming and get into data science. So there are different ways you can approach that. And you don't have to come into data science as in modeling per se. You can stay in your analytics or BI domain. So yeah, there are a lot of careers to explore. And that was the reason why we wanted to have this forum, is not everybody is a data scientist or needs to be one.
So there are a few areas. If you are a domain expert in anything, there is people required to be communicating with data scientists. And we have a use case where we've gone through the training and transformation for one of our clients. The problem was not models. They were able to make models, but how to understand how to communicate with these people is the biggest challenge. So there are those people required who can communicate with a data scientist, who can understand what the requirements have been given to them and how to use those requirements and talk to business. So typically, domain experts are the better people if they can be trained, like product managers. A lot of MBA folks, they get into data science and they are product manager right now. But their job is to work with data science, give them the requirement, let them understand what needs to be built, and then communicate with the business. So there are jobs available in all the field where you need to have data. But if you really want to be a data scientist, I think then you need to really go math or engineering background.
That's a great example, Rahul. I'll just touch upon that because it's of interest. So that particular client that Rahul is talking about, they had a major problem. They created a data science center of excellence and they spoke Greek and only Greek. Everybody else spoke, English and French and German and Chinese, whatever. And they couldn't communicate because their language was different, right? And all we did, we got ourselves a Carnegie Mellon PhD, who's one of our advisors, Dr. Murthy, and he goes in and says, this is a classic communication problem. And he comes up with not a data science framework, but a communication framework. And he tells us, this is the framework. Give this to your product program managers. And then likewise, you give this to your data science center of excellence. Now they know exactly how to talk. And that solved the problem. That gave the product managers the type of questions to ask the center of excellence guys in terms of what kind of models to build, and vice versa, in terms of how those models were being evaluated. Otherwise, there was a mismatch. They had spent millions of dollars. They were not seeing any returns because they were not able to talk the same language that business did. Right? So that is one example. And the other example you mentioned was about roles. So out of the previous cohort, we had a lady who recently started at Apple as a program manager in the data science team. And she sent us she used to actually be on the bridge. She was so thankful that she was able to spend a couple of months with us. She said, I'm not a data scientist in that team, but I'm working, everybody around me is a data scientist. Had I gone to that interview without having any clue of what they did, I wouldn't have been hired. But after spending a couple of months, understanding the basics of modeling, understanding the basics of engineering analytics, I can talk to them when they say random forest, when they talk about RNNs and CNNs, I understand and why they're using this model versus that. She had a 4-hour interview, she got hired, she was ecstatic. So if you take this pathway, you don't need to do a 6-year PhD journey. There are a lot of exits in the interim. Data engineering exits, analytics exits, facilitator exits. So all you have to choose is, choose your destination based on your interest level. Yes. It's like a decision tree. I think what Harini was mentioning is you do the first step and then make a decision. Okay, I like this a little bit more. I have this background. Maybe let me experiment with this.
So it was surprising, actually. I'm not a data scientist. I was sitting in that workshop, and there are a lot of people who are like what you said. They don't have any background either on programming, or they're not even engineer or mathematician. And after the course or the program we did, you need to define whether it's an image problem or it's a text problem, what model you use. And Dr. Murthy started asking, people who are no knowledge. After that, he started asking, okay, this is the problem of shipping, right? Shipping optimization or something. What do you think? What is this problem? Is it an image problem or something like that? And they said this model. The people who are saying is like, hey, to the data scientist, are you doing this particular model? And that was surprising only on one day's time. So it's always useful. If you have, then you can talk to these guys and then you can question them why you're using this model. It's an image problem, it's a text problem, why you're not using different problems. So people would be respecting you. And that's very important, because another problem that Center of Excellence, they didn't want to talk to product team. They said they don't know, they don't understand us. We are too cool data scientists and we don't want to talk to you guys. So after that workshop, they really started talking about it. All the models which they were building, now they are using it. And before that, they were not used. After 3 months, they were getting to know, we built something, but what do we do with this? We asked you something, you give us these things, what do we do? We don't understand. So those kind of things will help, and everybody is using data science. So if you have some knowledge on that domain, and it will help everyone.
Yeah, I want to add too is that if you want to get into my field, my path, you don't need programming. So a lot of what I do, actually, there's manual that you can follow. There's instructions especially if you're supporting different vendors' products. So all you do is just take the guide and follow that. And there's different paths too within IT. There's security, data, forensic, loss, forensics. Those don't require any programming. I mean, there are minor programming that that goes with the role, but yeah, not really. It's more implementation is what you like to do. There's also, if you wanted to stay within network management, you can be more passive. I'm more active, so I like to implement things and just set up goals, and people just like to monitor, manage. So that part too. With that role, you're more sedentary. You don't have to move around, so it's up to you.
So we had earmarked about 45 minutes for a panel. It's an hour 15 already. We're just about to hit 8 o'clock. So we might have to wind up, but wasn't this a great session, guys? Didn't you like it? Okay, so I have a lot of slides after this as well, and we'll probably distribute it in the interest of time. It talks about the cohort. For those of you who would like to know more about the cohort that we are offering, we did this end of last year, October, November. A few of the previous graduates are here in the audience. It's a 2-month cohort. We will do things a little differently this time, probably because last time we did the project after the cohort ended. In the next one, we will do the project as part of the cohort towards the end, so that the momentum keeps going. If you have any questions, if you would like to enroll, please send an email either to Meetup, or there is a separate alias called cohort@bayone.com. Okay, so just send an email. We will be enrolling fairly quickly. All we need of you is a resume, your LinkedIn link, and why you would want to pursue this, because we are sponsoring it. There is a cost involved, but you don't have to pay anything. We will bear the cost. But the thing is, we need to know what interests you. We are doing this to ensure that women get adequate representation in the tech world. And I think the 4 speakers tonight were inspirational. for you. So we will give you all, very briefly, in a single sentence or two, any words of wisdom. Let me preface this, some ladies spend 2-3 months, and I know some of them are struggling. What kind of project should I do? Any change is difficult, right? What would be your advice?
So I would say, first of all, you did the right thing. You're already at the right spot, right? The first thing is really, you came here to Cohort, or even just to find out what it is about, right? So that's the first step that you took, which is good. So you're curious to see what this data science can get you into what kind of job and all that, right? So explore that, and then of course you're doing project, and the second cohort is even going to start with project, which is even better actually. I like sort of on-the-job training kind of a thing. But you're already at the right place. I would say just continue working on it, focusing on it, and then in the meantime you'll figure out kind of jobs that are available out there, and there are a variety of jobs. Just see what your passion is and spend a few months, and I'm sure this will be the best decision of your life. One of the best decisions of your life, I would say.
Yes, my advice is probably keep branching out. Don't be afraid. Just reach out to people, even people you don't know. Just I reach out to people. Some of these were my best friends, my colleagues. So I didn't know them 5 years ago. So now they're giving me advice.
For any change, any application, whether you're a salesman or looking for a new job, do you know how many times you need to apply before success on average? What's the percentage? 50, 40? 3%. International average, which means if you're looking for a good job, you have to apply to at least 34 places before they accept you. That's page 1 on what color is your parachute. That basically means you don't get frustrated after 10, 15, 20, or even 34. That's the average. For you, it might take 68. Okay? So I know a lot of these ladies have undergone that struggle. You only see the tip of the iceberg. 90% of that is underwater. That's the foundation. That's what you're building. Focus on that. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think the key message, I think, is just keep learning and keep going, because I don't think any path is necessarily easy, especially being a woman. So I think, so make sure you keep learning, keep trying. I probably applied to thousands of jobs. I've changed careers a lot. And I think if I sense that the environment is not appreciating or recognizing or valuing me, I've made bold decisions to move in 6 months after joining a job. So I think yeah, just make sure that you continue to learn. Don't be afraid to make big decisions. And I think your interest is in the right space. So I think what BayOne's doing is fantastic, because this is something that a lot of people pay a lot for other types of Coursera's and Bootcamp, so many other types of things. So I think please leverage this. I think it's fantastic, and I really wish all of you the best.
I think the best way to start is this cohort, where you learn like the basic algorithms, or even these advanced algorithms like RNN and CNN. I'm impressed that you guys covered that.
In less than 8 weeks.
Yeah, I know. That's pretty good. I guess the best way to learn for programming experience is like maybe do Kaggle, if you guys have heard of this competition. They have different ranges of difficulty, like easy, medium, whatever. And some of the solutions are already given because they're very old. You can start with that. And like the best way to understand what the algorithm is doing, or what the problem is, or how to train your brain to think like a data scientist or machine learning, or even just basic pipelining. Just start with a project, a simple project.
So, Kaggle, you mentioned any other sources where they might find interesting fodder for their projects, either as data or as use cases? Anything that comes to mind?
They have a lot of open source data, like for one of my projects at Berkeley, it was Spotify's data. They have Wikipedia. You can make your own project and see something, maybe something interests you. Maybe you want to create a better WebMD. That's already, so given your symptoms, like for me, I'm always Googling, okay, these are my symptoms, what do I have, without going to the doctor. So I was like, maybe I can actually go to like different, they have these blogs on different diseases, scrape it, and then kind of cluster and given a list of symptoms, try to classify something.
Wow. Great.
So, but yeah, you could, whatever, maybe a project that you are personally interested in, cooking, like recipes. Okay, given I only have 3 ingredients in my fridge, what is like a recipe I could create given training data on the internet or something?
So your next job opportunity might be somewhere right here in this room. Okay, so we will continue networking for a few more minutes before we wind up. Let's give a big round of applause to all our lady participants tonight. Paula and Sunita, thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate. Some of you have driven a very long distance to come here. Thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. And thank you guys on the phone. These are the details of the cohort, by the way, in case you're interested.
Take a picture.
Oh, yes.
You're not there.
Yes, we can do it for more space. Christmas tree, with the Christmas tree. Thank you.
We can send a note to Meetup. We will just send an email and share those details. It's either a little bit about me.
Suva, sir.
Oh, yes, sir. Cohort@bayone.com. You can send an email to that.
Thank you. No, you used to.
Meet the press.
Would you like to join?
I'm good. That's why we got in trouble.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. And there's food.
We have a lot more pizza. Yeah, thanks to you and your team.
Thank you.
Great job. Let's give you a I was there for 12 years. Which building?
Take some food. Guys, take some food. I always order so much. It's just all cheese and that's just so hard to like.
What's your?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Really good.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I hope you registered and